The massive space station slowly turned in the darkness around the dead star. Kepler Station was bigger than most moons, with millions of lights blinking across its metal surface. Inside the main hall, creatures from across the galaxy had gathered for their yearly meeting. Some walked on two legs like humans, others crawled on many legs, and some floated in the air without legs at all. Ambassador Tae-Ho Kim walked through the crowds, his dark suit making him stand out among the colorful aliens. He was the first human to visit this place in 500,000 years. Most aliens had never seen a human before. They stared at him with their many different types of eyes, whispering in languages that sounded like music, buzzing, or grinding. Rocks. Captain Sora Lim followed behind Tae-Ho, her hand resting on her weapon. She had fought in many wars on Earth, but this was different. Here, they were surrounded by hundreds of alien species, each with their own armies and weapons. Her job was to keep Tae-Ho safe, but she also watched everything around them with a soldier's eyes. The main hall was enormous, with a ceiling so high that clouds formed near the top. Thousands of aliens sat in groups based on their species. The snake-like Draknari sat together, their scales shining under the bright lights. The crystal beings called Zilmoth made musical sounds when they moved. Giant insects clicked their claws together in rhythm. At the center of the hall stood a tall platform where speakers could address everyone. Today was the Conquest celebration, where different species bragged about their greatest military victories. It happened every year, and species competed to tell the most impressive war stories. Tae-Ho and Sora found their seats in a section marked for new members. The other aliens around them kept staring and pointing. Some took pictures with strange devices. Others tried to get closer to smell them or touch their skin, a crystal being floated over to them, making bell-like sounds as it moved. "Welcome, humans," it said through a translation device. "I am Mediator Zilmoth. I have been alive for 800,000 years. I remember your species from long ago." Tae-Ho stood and bowed politely. "Thank you for welcoming us back to the galactic community." Zilmoth made a sound like breaking glass, which the translator said was laughter. "Back? Oh, young human, you were never truly gone, just sleeping." Before Tae-Ho could ask what that meant, loud music began playing. The celebration was starting. Different species took turns on the platform, telling stories of planets they had conquered and enemies they had defeated. The audience cheered and clapped for each story. The bear-like Ursani told how they had destroyed a robotic army. The bird people called Avis described their victory over space pirates. Each story was more violent than the last, and the crowd loved it. Then the Draknari took the stage. Overlord Vexathari was huge, even for his species. His dark green scales covered muscles that could crush metal. His yellow eyes looked out over the crowd as he began to speak. "My fellow galactic citizens," he said in a voice like grinding stones, "today I tell you of our greatest victory. 500,000 years ago, the Draknari Empire faced our most dangerous enemy. They called themselves humans." Tae-Ho felt Sora tense beside him. Her hand moved closer to her weapon. Vexathari continued his story. "These humans thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They had spread to many worlds and built powerful ships. But when they faced the might of the Draknari Empire, they learned the truth about real strength." The alien audience was completely quiet, hanging on every word. "The war lasted only 3 months, Vexathari said, raising his clawed hands. "Our fleets found their home world, a small blue planet they called Earth. We destroyed their cities from space. We hunted down every human ship. We made sure none of them could escape to threaten the galaxy again." Cheers erupted from the Draknari section. Other aliens joined in, impressed by the story. "Where once the humans ruled dozens of worlds," Vexathari shouted over the noise, "now there is only empty space and floating debris. The Draknari Empire claimed all their territory. We turned their greatest cities into monuments to our victory. This is why we are feared across the galaxy." The crowd exploded with applause. Aliens stood up, cheering and making their species sounds of approval. The Draknari looked proud, their scales shining brighter with excitement, but not everyone was cheering. In the section where the oldest species sat, several ancient beings had started making strange sounds. Zilmoth was ringing like a broken bell. The floating jellyfish-like void swimmers were pulsing with what looked like laughter. Even the serious rock creatures called Stone Fathers were rumbling in what might have been amusement. The celebration slowly died down as more aliens noticed the old species laughing. Vexithari looked confused and angry. "Why do you laugh at our greatest victory?" he demanded. Mediator Zilmoth floated up from the ancient section, still making bell sounds. When the laughter finally stopped, the crystal being's voice rang through the hall. "Forgive us, mighty Draknari," Zilmoth said, though the translator couldn't hide the amusement in the tone. "We laugh because you have just claimed credit for hunting the galaxy's most dangerous predators." The hall fell silent. Vexithari's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, Ancient One?" "Tell me," Zilmoth asked, "what do your historical records say about human military capabilities?" Vexithari stood taller. "They were primitives with simple weapons. Easy prey for Draknari warriors." More laughter came from the ancient section. A void swimmer pulsed bright colors as it spoke. "Young reptile, your species didn't even exist when the humans disappeared." "Lies!" Vexithari roared. "Our ancestors conquered the human homeworld. We have the territorial claims to prove it." An old stone father rumbled to life, its voice like an earthquake. "You found empty worlds and claimed them. The humans had already gone." The crowd was confused now. Thousands of aliens looked back and forth between the Draknari and the ancient species. Arguments broke out in different sections. Teho stood up slowly. The movement was small, but somehow every eye in the massive hall turned to look at him. The argument stopped. The silence was so complete that the only sound was the humming of the station's engines. "Overlord Vexithari," Teho said in a calm voice that carried across the huge space. "Your story is very interesting. I would like to request a formal audience with the Galactic Council to discuss these historical claims." Vexithari laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "A human wants to challenge Draknari historical records? You are brave. I will give you that." "Very well. We will meet in formal session tomorrow. I look forward to showing the galaxy proof of your species' weakness." Teho bowed again. "Thank you. I believe it will be very educational for everyone." As the celebration ended and aliens began leaving the hall, Zilmoth floated over to the humans again. "Be careful, young humans," the ancient being warned. "The Draknari have built their entire empire on the fear of their supposed victory over your kind. They will not give up that lie easily." Captain Sora Lim spoke for the first time since entering the hall. "What exactly do you think we are?" Zilmoth was quiet for a long moment. When the crystal being finally answered, the translator made the voice sound almost frightened. "You are the reason most species stay close to home after dark." The next morning, the Galactic Council chambers were packed. Word had spread quickly through the station about the humans challenging Draknari history. Aliens who had never cared about politics crowded into every available seat. Some hung from the ceiling, others pressed against the walls. Dr. Hyojin Park stood at a table covered with data tablets and hologram projectors. She was much smaller than most aliens in the room, but her eyes held the calm confidence of someone who knew the truth. Beside her, researcher Yijun Choi worked quickly, connecting cables and checking displays. Across the chamber, Commander Dalvin sat with his father, Overlord Vexithari. The young Draknari officer looked excited, like he was about to watch a good show. His scales were polished to a bright shine, and he wore his best military decorations. He kept whispering to other Draknari about how they would embarrass the humans in front of the entire galaxy. Mediator Zilmoth floated to the center of the chamber. The crystal being's voice rang out clear and loud. "This formal session will examine historical claims regarding the fate of the human species. The Draknari Empire claims to have conquered humanity 500,000 years ago. The humans dispute this claim." Vexithari stood first, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "Honored Mediator, the evidence is clear. Draknari forces destroyed human civilization and claimed their worlds. We have territorial rights to 17 star systems that once belonged to the humans. These systems have been under Draknari control for 500,000 years. The Overlord activated a hologram showing star maps. Red markers indicated Draknari territory. As you can see, these systems form a perfect conquest pattern. Our ancestors moved systematically through human space, taking each world one by one. Many aliens nodded, impressed by the display. The evidence looked convincing. Commander Dalvin added, "We also found human artifacts on these worlds, broken weapons, destroyed cities, signs of battle. Clear proof that we defeated them in combat." Now it was Dr. Hai-Jin Park's turn to speak. She walked to the center of the chamber, her movements calm and measured. "Honorable Council members, we have spent the last day reviewing galactic historical databases. What we found is very interesting." She activated her own hologram display. Ancient text appeared in the air, written in dozens of different alien languages. "These are records from the Zilmoth archives, dating back 600,000 years, she said. They describe first contact between humans and galactic civilization. The text began to move and change, showing translations in modern languages. Yi-Jun Choi's voice provided narration through the speakers. Species designation, human. Homeworld, Earth, Sol system. Population, 12 billion across 47 worlds. Military classification, apex predators. Threat level, maximum. Approach with extreme caution. Murmurs ran through the crowd. That didn't sound like the primitive species Vexathari had described. Dr. Park continued, "The next entry is from 550,000 years ago." New text appeared, this time glowing red like a warning. "Alert. Human fleet movements detected in the outer rim. 7 civilizations have gone silent in the past month. No distress signals sent. Worlds found completely empty with no signs of violence. Population vanished without trace. Military vessels abandoned in perfect condition." The chamber grew quieter. Even the Draknari were listening now. Another entry. 520,000 years ago, Dr. Park said. More red text filled the air. Emergency Council session. Human military capabilities exceed all previous estimates. Request for explanation of the sanctuary incident denied by human representatives. Quote from Human Ambassador Chen Wei. "Some lessons can only be taught once. 3 neutral species extinct. Galactic shipping routes abandoned. Elder Kunari, an insectoid being older than most stars, clicked his way to the speaker's area. His voice was like dry leaves rustling. "I was there," he said simply. "I remember the humans. They did not wage war like other species. They did not conquer worlds for resources or territory. They hunted." The old alien's mandibles clicked together as he remembered. Human ships moved through space like ghosts. They could appear anywhere, anytime. Their weapons could destroy planets or disable fleets without leaving a trace. But the most frightening thing about humans was not their power, it was their patience. "What do you mean?" asked a young representative from the bird-like avis species. "They would study their enemies for years before acting," Elder Kunari explained. "They learned every weakness, every pattern, every fear. When humans finally attacked, it was already over. The enemy just didn't know it yet." Commander Dalvin stood up angrily. "These are stories! Where is your proof?" Dr. Park smiled and activated another display. This time, actual video footage appeared in the air, ancient and grainy but clear enough to see. The video showed a massive space battle. Hundreds of alien ships fired weapons at what looked like empty space. Then, like ghosts becoming solid, human ships appeared among the alien fleet. They were sleek and dark, like metal sharks moving through water. What happened next was not a battle. It was a demonstration of absolute superiority. The human ships moved between enemy vessels, disabling them with single precise shots. No ships were destroyed, no aliens were killed, but within minutes the entire fleet was helpless. "This footage is from the archives of the Hive Mind Collective," Dr. Park explained. "It shows human forces ending the pirate war of Kepler Sector in exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The chamber was dead silent now. Even the Draknari looked shaken. Yi-Jun Choi spoke up from his position at the data displays. "The historical records are very clear about what happened next. After the sanctuary incident, where 3 neutral species were accidentally exterminated during a human military operation, humanity called an emergency council. New text appeared, this time in blue instead of red. Human representatives' statement to Galactic Council. We have become what we once fought against. We are too dangerous to remain active in galactic affairs. Humanity chooses voluntary exile until we learn to be better." Elder Quinari made clicking sounds that the translator said was sadness. "I watched their ships leave, thousands of vessels, just disappearing into the darkness between stars. We thought they were running away in shame." "But they weren't running," Dr. Park said. "They were isolating themselves for our protection." Another ancient being, a floating gas creature called a void swimmer, pulsed with light as it spoke. The last human transmission was a promise. They said they would return when they had learned wisdom to match their power. Vexathari's voice cracked as he tried to maintain his story. "This proves nothing! We still conquered their worlds!" Dr. Park activated her final display. Star charts appeared, showing the systems the Draknari claimed to have conquered. These systems were abandoned by humans 480,000 years ago, she said calmly. "Your species didn't evolve to spaceflight until 300,000 years ago. You found empty worlds and claimed them. There were no battles because there was no one left to fight. The proof was overwhelming. Dates, records, video evidence, testimony from multiple ancient species. The Draknari had built their entire military reputation on a lie." Commander Dalvin jumped to his feet, his scales bright red with anger. "You dare insult the honor of the Draknari Empire? These records could be fake. Humans are weak. Prove your strength if you think you're so powerful." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some aliens supported the Draknari, others believed the evidence. In the chaos, no one noticed Ambassador Taeho Kim quietly speaking into a communication device. His message was simple. Archaeological demonstration requested, send the educational fleet. 3 days later, Ambassador Taeho Kim's ship moved through empty space toward a sector that appeared blank on all galactic maps. Captain Sora Lim sat beside him in the pilot's seat, her fingers dancing across controls that looked simple but controlled technology far beyond what the galaxy had seen. "The council session went well," Taeho said quietly, as stars streaked past their window. "Commander Dalvin made his challenge very public. The entire galaxy will be watching." Sora nodded without taking her eyes off the navigation display. "Admiral Han will be pleased. We've been waiting a long time for this opportunity." Their ship approached what looked like empty space, but suddenly, a massive structure appeared around them. It had been invisible moments before, hidden by technology, that bent light and energy around it like water flowing around a stone. The structure was a space station larger than most planets, with thousands of ships docked at its many ports. This was Haven Station, humanity's secret home for 500,000 years. Inside the station's command center, Admiral Dongwook Han stood, before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. He was tall and lean, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. Around him, dozens of officers worked at stations that hummed with quiet power. Lieutenant Na Young Seo approached, the admiral with a data tablet in her hands. "Sir, we've received Ambassador Kim's report. The Draknari have publicly challenged us to prove human military capability." Admiral Han smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "After 500,000 years of peace, they want to see what we've learned. Very well. What does our intelligence tell us about Draknari forces?" Nayung Seo activated her tablet, and information appeared in the air around them. "The Draknari Empire controls 23% of the galaxy through fear and intimidation. Their actual military record shows they have never fought an opponent with advanced technology. Most of their victories are against primitive species or abandoned colonies." "Their fleet composition?" the admiral asked. "Standard galactic technology, roughly equivalent to what we were using 500,000 years ago. Energy shields, plasma weapons, chemical propulsion, nothing we haven't seen before." Engineer Sungmin Lee looked up from his workstation where complex diagrams rotated in 3 dimensions. "Admiral, the archaeological fleet is ready for deployment. 12 ships, exactly as the ancient records show we used in our last major engagement." Admiral Han nodded. "And their actual capabilities?" Sungmin Lee's smile was the expression of someone who loved his work. "Sir, these ships look identical to our ancient vessels, but inside they represent 500,000 years of technological advancement. Quantum engines that can move through folded space. weapons that manipulate matter at the atomic level, defense systems that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Pilot Jae-Yoon Moon joined the group, her flight suit marked, with symbols that would have terrified galactic civilization if they understood their meaning. Admiral, my squadron is ready for the demonstration. We've practiced the maneuvers from the historical archives. It should look exactly like our ancestors' tactics. Should look like, but not be limited to, Admiral Han asked. No, sir. If they want to see what modern humans can do, we're ready to show them. The Admiral turned to face a large screen showing images from the Galactic Council session. Commander Dalvin's angry face filled the display, his scales bright red with rage as he challenged human military capability. 500,000 years ago, we left galactic civilization because we were too dangerous, Admiral Han said to his assembled officers. We had become so powerful that we accidentally destroyed 3 species while hunting pirates. We swore to learn wisdom before we returned to the stars. He activated a display showing human colonies hidden throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds, invisible to galactic sensors, filled with billions of humans who had spent centuries perfecting their technology and philosophy. We have learned, the Admiral continued. We understand the difference between strength and brutality. We know when to act and when to show restraint. But most importantly, we have learned precision. Intelligence Officer Su Jin Woo approached with her own report. Admiral, Draknari forces are mobilizing. Commander Dalvin has convinced his father to send a demonstration fleet to human space. 10,000 ships, their largest military formation in centuries. 10,000 ships to face 12, Admiral Han mused. They really don't understand what they're dealing with, do they? Sir, Lieutenant Na Young Seo said, the entire galaxy will be watching this engagement. News networks from every major species are sending ships to observe. This will be broadcast to trillions of beings. Admiral Han was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays around him. Finally, he spoke. For 500,000 years, we've wondered if we made the right choice by leaving. We've questioned whether voluntary exile made us weak or wise. Today, we get our answer. He turned to address his officers directly. This is not about defeating the Draknari. Any one of our ships could disable their entire fleet in minutes. This is about showing the galaxy who we have become. Engineer Sungmin Lee looked up from his technical displays. What are your orders, sir? We will give them exactly what they asked for, Admiral Han said, a demonstration of human military capability. But we will do it our way, with precision and restraint. No one will be harmed unless they choose to continue fighting after we show them the futility of their position. Captain In-ho Yoon entered the command center, wearing the dark uniform of the archaeological fleet. His ship captains followed behind him, 12 men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Admiral, Captain Yoon said with a salute, the archaeological fleet requests permission to begin the educational demonstration. Permission granted, Captain. Show them what we were, then show them what we've become. As the human officers prepared for departure, Admiral Han activated a communication channel to every human colony in the galaxy. His face appeared on screens, in thousands of hidden cities. My fellow humans, he began, today we return to galactic civilization, not as conquerors, but as teachers. The galaxy has forgotten why our ancestors chose exile. It's time to remind them gently of what they once feared in the darkness between stars. On Haven Station's massive docking bays, 12 ships prepared to launch. They looked ancient and primitive, like museum pieces from humanity's early space age. But appearances could be deceiving. Inside each ship, crews made final preparations using technology that operated on principles the galaxy's greatest scientists couldn't imagine. Weapons that could rearrange matter with surgical precision. Engines that moved through dimensions the galaxy didn't know existed. Shields that existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Captain Yoon sat in his command chair, watching the stars through his ship's main screen. In a few hours, they would meet the Draknari fleet. The encounter would be broadcast across the galaxy, watched by trillions of beings who thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The Draknari War fleet stretched across space like a metal ocean. 10,000 ships of every size floated in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready for battle. Each ship bore the red and gold colors of the Draknari Empire, and their crews were eager to prove their superiority over the returning humans. Commander Dalvin stood on the bridge of the flagship, a massive battleship called the Fist of Victory. Around him, his officers checked weapons systems and energy shields. The ship's main screen showed empty space ahead, but they knew the humans were coming. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving signals from over 200 news ships. The entire galaxy is watching this battle." Dalvin smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Excellent. When we crush these primitive humans, everyone will know the true power of the Draknari Empire." He activated the fleet-wide communication system. "Warriors of the Empire! Today we face the descendants of a species our ancestors conquered 500,000 years ago. These humans think they can challenge us with their ancient ships and outdated weapons. We will show them the same fate that befell their homeworld." Cheers erupted from 10,000 ships as Draknari crews roared their approval. Suddenly, the space in front of the fleet began to shimmer like water in sunlight. 12 ships appeared from nowhere, looking exactly like the ancient human vessels from historical records. They were small compared to the Draknari fleet, sleek and dark, like metal sharks floating in an ocean of light. Captain Inho Yoon sat calmly in his command chair, watching the massive enemy formation through his main screen. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems that the Draknari couldn't even imagine. "Sir," Specialist Bo-Ra Kim reported from her electronic warfare station, "I'm reading their communication frequencies, weapon signatures, and shield harmonics. Their technology is exactly what we expected from the intelligence reports." "Very good," Captain Yoon said. "Begin the educational demonstration. Phase 1, Historical Recreation." Dalvin watched the 12 human ships with growing confusion. They moved in the exact same pattern described in ancient battle records, but they seemed to be waiting for something. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "they're not powering weapons or raising shields. Should we open fire?" "Not yet," Dalvin replied. "Let them make the first move. I want the galaxy to see that humans are the aggressors here." Captain Yoon activated his communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies so every news ship could record his words. "Draknari Fleet. This is Captain Yoon of the Human Archaeological Fleet. You have claimed to have conquered our species and demanded tribute from our worlds. We are here to provide educational clarification of historical events. Please observe carefully." Dalvin laughed and opened his own communication channel. "Human Captain, you face 10,000 ships with only 12. Surrender now and we will make your destruction quick." "Thank you for the offer," Captain Yoon replied politely. "But we must respectfully decline. Bo-Ra, if you please." Specialist Bo-Ra Kim's fingers moved across her control panel like a musician playing a complex song. What she did next was so simple that it seemed impossible. Every Draknari ship in the fleet suddenly went dark. 10,000 vessels, from the smallest fighter to the massive flagship, lost power simultaneously. Their engines stopped, their weapons powered down, their lights went out. Life support systems continued working, but everything else simply stopped functioning. Inside the Fist of Victory, emergency lighting cast red shadows across the bridge, as Dalvin and his crew stared at their dead control panels. "What happened?" Dalvin shouted. "Engineering, report!" His chief engineer's voice came through the communication system, sounding confused and frightened. "Sir, all our main systems have been deactivated. It's like someone just turned off a switch. I don't understand how this is possible." Across the fleet, similar reports came from every ship. Nothing was damaged, nothing was broken, but nothing worked either. Captain Yoon's voice came through the Draknari communication system, calm and educational. "Phase 1 complete. What you have just experienced is a demonstration of electronic warfare techniques used by human forces 500,000 years ago. Your ship's computer systems have been temporarily deactivated for safety purposes." General Hoseok Jang spoke from his position at the Marine Command Station. "Captain, requesting permission to begin Phase 2. "Permission granted, General. Please demonstrate historical boarding techniques." What happened next defied everything the Draknari knew about space combat. Human Marines began appearing inside Draknari ships, not through airlocks or docking tubes, but simply walking through the metal walls as if they were made of air. The Marines wore simple gray uniforms and carried no visible weapons. They moved through the ships with calm professionalism, politely asking crew members to step aside as they made their way to bridges and command centers. On the Fist of Victory, Dalvin watched in horror as 3 human Marines walked through his bridge wall. The metal didn't melt or break. They simply passed through it like ghosts becoming solid. "Commander Dalvin," the lead Marine said with a respectful nod. "I am Sergeant Minho Park. You are cordially invited to observe the remainder of the demonstration from your main viewing screen." Dalvin tried to draw his weapon, but his hand passed right through it. The sergeant had somehow made the weapon intangible without affecting anything else around it. "Please don't be alarmed," Sergeant Park said. "You are in no danger. We are simply following historical protocols for educational purposes." Captain Yoon's voice filled the bridge. "Phase 2 complete. Draknari forces have been secured for their safety during the remaining demonstration." Through the main screen, Dalvin watched the 11 other human ships begin to move toward his fleet. What they did next was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The human ships didn't destroy the Draknari vessels. Instead, they began taking them apart. Using beams of light that cut through metal like scissors through paper, the human ships carefully disassembled every Draknari vessel. Weapons were removed and set aside in neat piles. Engine sections were separated from crew compartments. Hull plates were stacked in perfect geometric patterns, but no one was hurt. The human beams somehow knew the difference between ship parts and living beings. Draknari crew members found themselves floating safely in small life support pods, while their ships were systematically taken apart around them. Intelligence Officer Soo-Jin Woo's voice narrated the demonstration for the news broadcasts. "Ladies and gentlemen of the galactic community, what you are witnessing is a precise recreation of human naval tactics from our historical archives. Please note that no Draknari personnel are being harmed during this educational exercise." The human ships worked. The dismantled Draknari vessels were reassembled into something new. Using the same metal and components, the human fleet spelled out words in ancient galactic script that could be read from light years away. Learning exercise. The entire process took exactly 47 minutes. When it was finished, 10,000 Draknari ships had been transformed into a massive 3-dimensional message floating in space. Every crew member was safe in their life pods, watching through their windows as Captain Yoon's voice filled the silence. "Demonstration complete. All Draknari personnel will now be returned to their rebuilt vessels, which have been upgraded for improved performance. We hope this historical recreation has been educational for all observers." The news of the demonstration spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched the recordings of 12 human ships dismantling 10,000 Draknari vessels without firing a single destructive shot. The footage played over and over on every news network, each time showing the same impossible precision. In the Galactic Council chambers on Kepler Station, an emergency session had been called. Representatives from every major species filled the massive hall, their voices creating a symphony of confusion, fear, and amazement. Some aliens whispered nervously to each other, while others sat in stunned silence. President Mi Young Kong walked slowly to the center speaking platform. She was smaller than most beings in the hall, but her presence filled the enormous space. Behind her, holographic displays showed the human fleet's demonstration from multiple angles, captured by dozens of news ships. Overlord Vexathari sat in the Draknari section, his scales dull and gray with shame. His son, Commander Dalvin, had returned from the demonstration a changed being. The young officer who had been so proud and aggressive now spoke in whispers and jumped at sudden sounds. Mediator Zilmoth floated to his position as the chamber's moderator. The ancient crystal being's voice rang clear and musical through the hall. "The Galactic Council recognizes President Mi Young Kang of the Human Commonwealth," Zilmoth announced. "The floor is yours, Madam President." President Kang looked out over the assembled aliens, her dark eyes calm and thoughtful. When she spoke, her voice carried easily through the chamber without needing amplification. "Distinguished representatives," she began, 3 days ago, your civilizations witnessed what we call an educational demonstration. We understand that many of you have questions about what you saw." A representative from the insect-like hive collective clicked his mandibles together rapidly. President Kang, your ships dismantled 10,000 vessels in less than an hour. How is such precision possible? 500,000 years of practice, President Kang replied simply. When my ancestors left galactic civilization, they made a promise to return only when they had learned wisdom to match their power. We have spent every day since then keeping that promise. She activated a holographic display showing human colonies scattered throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of hidden worlds appeared on the star chart, each one invisible to normal galactic sensors. During our exile, we did not sleep or hide in fear, President Kang continued. We built, we learned, we grew. Most importantly, we practiced restraint. A young representative from the bird-like avis species raised a wing to speak. What do you mean by restraint? President Kang smiled, and for a moment, she looked sad. Your species remember us as the silent hunters, beings who could destroy worlds without warning. What you may not understand is why we were so feared. It was not because we were cruel or violent. It was because we were efficient. Ambassador Tae-ho Kim joined President Kang on the platform, carrying a data tablet that projected images into the air above them. The images showed ancient battles from 500,000 years ago, when humans first entered galactic space. Our ancestors fought like hunters, not soldiers, Tae-ho explained. We studied our enemies for years, learning every weakness, every pattern, every mistake they might make. When we finally acted, the battle was already over. Our enemies just didn't know it yet. The images changed to show the sanctuary incident that had driven humans from galactic civilization. 3 peaceful worlds turned to empty space by human weapons that had been meant for pirates hiding in the same system. We became too good at hunting, President Kang said quietly. Our weapons were so precise, our tactics so perfect, that we forgot the difference between military targets and innocent civilians. In our pursuit of pirates, we accidentally destroyed 3 neutral species. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the noise of the station's life support systems seemed muted. That day, our government made a choice, President Kang continued. We could continue as we were, becoming the galaxy's apex predators, feared by all. Or we could step back and learn to be something better. Elder Kunari clicked his way to a speaking position. The ancient insect's voice was like old paper rustling in the wind. What did you learn during your exile? Patience, President Kang answered. Our ancestors were impatient hunters who struck quickly and moved on. We learned to wait, precision. We learned to act with surgical accuracy, affecting only what we intended to change. And most importantly, we learned when not to act at all. She gestured to the holographic recordings of the demonstration. 3 days ago, we could have destroyed the Draknari fleet in seconds. Instead, we chose to teach. We could have humiliated them before the galaxy. Instead, we chose to educate. Commander Dalvin stood up slowly from the Draknari section. His voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone could hear him. What happens to us now? He asked. My people built our empire on the lie that we conquered humanity. When the galaxy learns the truth, we will lose everything. President Kang looked at the young Draknari officer with something like compassion. Commander, your empire was built on fear and false claims. Those empires never last. But this gives you an opportunity to build something real. She activated a new display showing economic and social data from across Draknari space. Your tributary species already know the truth. Most stopped paying tribute the moment our demonstration ended. But instead of losing everything, you can gain something much more valuable. What? Dalvin asked. Respect, President Kang replied. Not the fear that comes from claiming false victories, but the respect that comes from honest service to the galaxy. Ambassador Tae-ho Kim stepped forward with a proposal that had been prepared before they ever returned to galactic civilization. The Human Commonwealth offers to establish the Galactic Accuracy Commission, he announced, a joint organization dedicated to maintaining truthful historical records and preventing future misunderstandings about military capabilities. He looked directly at the Draknari delegation. We invite the Draknari Empire to be founding members of this commission. Help us ensure that no other species builds their reputation on false claims of conquest. Overlord Vexithari stood up slowly, his massive form seeming smaller than before. What would this commission do? Investigate historical claims, verify military records, and provide accurate information about galactic conflicts, Tejo explained. Think of it as a truth-finding organization, dedicated to preventing future wars based on misunderstandings, Adiator. Zilmoth pulsed with soft light as the ancient being considered the proposal. This commission would have human support? Full support, President Kang confirmed. We will provide our historical archives, our analytical capabilities, and our protection to ensure the commission can work without interference. The word protection carried special weight after the demonstration. Every being in the chamber understood what human protection meant now. A vote was called immediately. Species after species voted to establish the Accuracy Commission, with the Draknari Empire among the first to volunteer as founding members. As the session ended, and aliens began to leave the chamber, Mediator Zilmoth floated over to President Kang. The apex predators have returned, the crystal being said. But they have learned wisdom. The galaxy is safer for it, and more dangerous to those who would threaten it. President Kang nodded. We spent 500,000 years learning to be gardeners, instead of hunters. Now we tend the garden of galactic civilization, protecting its growth and diversity. As human ships began establishing permanent diplomatic stations throughout the galaxy, a new age began. An age where truth mattered more than fear, where wisdom guided strength, and where the most dangerous species in the galaxy had become its most devoted protectors.